welcome to this edition of the Land O'Lakers podcast here with the Kamenetzky Brothers, Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. Andy, for the first time in a long time, it's playoff basketball time.
It is the first time, by the way, the Lakers have been in the playoffs since the first Dwight Howard era. Like, Dwight Howard is the key to keeping the Lakers in the playoffs. Who knew then, but we know now.
Lakers versus the Portland TrailBlazers, we learned on Saturday. And to help us break this down, we're joined by Peter Sampson from 750 The Game in Portland. He's also a contributing writer to the awesome Blazers blog, Blazers Edge. Thing's been around for a long. It is the I think still the gold standard of Portland blogging. Peter, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. How we doing?
Good. Especially too because we're happy to have our sponsors with us. Delicious Pizza. They've got 2 locations in LA, West Adams and Hollywood. And Peter, if you're ever in town, I don't know why you would come into LA to cover this series because it's all in Orlando. But if you just wanted to really build the thing up and be here for game 1 and
perhaps
game 2,
you didn't get the memo.
Experiencing it in LA, and frankly, just traveling here doesn't seem all that safe, but you do you. 20% off if you use the password Cam Brothers, whether you're calling it in ahead of time, walking in. It is awesome pizza, awesome food, and you're not only supporting a local business, you are supporting a local business that happens to be run by a massive Laker fan.
Yeah.
So everybody listening to this podcast right now, you're doing a solid on 2 counts. Local business, Laker fan.
DeliciousPizza.com. All right. So, Peter, this was what's funny about this is it's kind of the result I think everybody expected when the play-in games, when the seeding game started, that it would be, Memphis probably versus Portland. That's whatever. And then Portland would probably advance. But the path for the Blazers, they won a lot of games. And what did they say? They were 7-2 inside the bubble, if my math is right. But they didn't win by a lot. They blew the Clippers game. They barely won that Brooklyn game. How well are they actually playing coming into this series, do you think?
Well, offensively, they look good. Of course, Damian Lillard is the key to all that. But CJ McCollum fighting through an injury, he's had his moments. Skinny Mello has looked good. He's come up clutch in the fourth. He's still, jab steps into oblivion from the mid-range, but he's hit some clutch shots. Gary Trent Jr. has emerged. I'm not worried about the offense at all, but defensively, this team is still a disaster, just like they have been all season long, and to a degree, in the Damian Lillard era.
Yeah,
so, go ahead.
I actually while we were there, I wanted to ask you with the defense, because like you said, Peter, this team has not been good defensively all year. As bad as their defensive numbers are in the bubble, they're pretty close to what they were during the regular season. How much of that, though, do you think a reacclimation period with getting Nurkic back in, getting Collins back in, not having Ariza, like a larger role for Gary Trent Jr., even though he's actually, I think, one of the better defenders on this team, versus, and I think there is a legitimate acclimation period with that, that is difficult to do and takes time. And how much of it do you think is just there's a ceiling with this team defensively that it doesn't matter what they do, they just don't have the personnel for it?
Yeah, it is, and I'm a Blazer fan. I'd love to say it's A, but it's B. Look, Nurkic and Collins are fantastic interior defenders. Collins has really been disappointing on the offensive end, but if there's one thing that guy can do, it's help defense and staying vertical. But the Blazers get killed specifically at the three-point line. They don't guard the three-point line. And not having Trevor Ariza, who opted out. Now, he's not the elite defender he was, say 5 or 6 years ago. But he's still a plus on that end. Not having Rodney Hood, he's out with the Achilles. Rodney Hood is at least an average defender, which Portland is desperate for on the wings. It's just the scheme. Look, Lillard has improved on defense. McCollum has not. Lillard has gone from atrocious to bad, and that's fine. That's great. McCollum has shown no improvement, and they just get lit up. Terry Stotts has to play a conservative defensive scheme where the bigs hang back, they sag back on the screen and roll. So if you have knockdown three-point shooters or even slightly above average three-point shooters, you're going to score against the Blazers, and the Blazers are going to have to be an elite offense to win.
Well, good news for the Blazers. The Lakers don't have those.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you, because you said, they don't defend the 3-point line well. What if I told you, and I know Lakers fans are saying, oh my God, the Kamenetskys are starting off doom and gloom. Trust me, we'll get to the parts where the Lakers give the Blazers fits, I promise. What if I told you you don't necessarily need to be a great 3-point defense to keep the Lakers from making 3-point shots?
I would believe that.
This is not a great 3-point shooting team. So, if you're talking about a team that does, Lakers are incredibly efficient in transition. They're incredibly good at finishing at the rim, despite having a bottom third 3-point shooting team all season. They led the league in field goal percentage because they were so efficient around the rim and in transition. So are those relative strengths for Portland? Are they, if they can't defend the 3-point line, which is not a huge thing against the Lakers, take your chances there. How are, do they do better in transition? Do they do better defending the rim, in the half court?
Yeah, very good defensively at the rim. Jusuf Nurkic, I think he's underrated defensively. I mean, he probably has a vertical on par with me at 42 years old. But he's so big and effective. He positions himself well. Zach Collins, a little foul prone, but he'll make a solid play. And again, when he's paired with Whiteside, especially, we all know Hassan Whiteside. He'll give you a highlight block, and then he'll give up 3 straight layups, chasing his next one. Collins is fantastic next to a guy like Whiteside because he's good at rotating over. They do well at the rim. Transition defense, I'm not really anyone outside of Gary Trent Jr. And can I just stop for a second? Everyone's talking about Gary Trent Jr.'s offensive emergence. I'm so impressed with that defense. 2 years ago, he couldn't guard ACC wings at Duke. He's so slow laterally, and he's just learned positioning. He's got active hands. I'm so impressed with Gary Trent Jr. He's still limited as a defender, but that
his emergence in the bubble, you could make an argument that made or broke Portland. I mean, like as great as Damian Lillard has been, and obviously as much as Nurkic's return and Collins' return matter, Melo's making. It's about time you started guarding that guy on, the right side near the baseline, outside the arc. Like that has been his spot the entire bubble. But I think Gary Trent Jr., if he doesn't play the way that he has, Portland's not here.
I feel like it's almost, Peter, like he's like the extension, like the disciple of Dame. Like you see that impact because Gary Trent is one of those just big balls, don't give a bleep type shit. Like, I'm open, I'm going to shoot. I don't care what time it is. Like, and it didn't play well, shoot the ball well throughout a lot of that Memphis game, but he had a couple huge ones down the stretch. You talk about his defensive emergence. So he's really the only guy you look at and they go, okay, you can put him on LeBron, I guess. Like, can he 7 games of that though? I mean, like, there's no natural fit for somebody who can run with LeBron and the Blazers, as far as I can see.
No, not at all. You would love to put Trevor Ariza on him. Not that Trevor Ariza would be able to contain LeBron. Look, no one's going to be able to contain LeBron. Let's just say that right now. Ariza at least has the veteran savvy to make him work a little bit. But, I mean, you're looking at a heavy dose of, let me stomach this, Carmelo Anthony and a little bit of Ariza on LeBron. Look, that's going to happen. Anthony's not as terrible a defender as he as
but as close as he and LeBron are. LeBron is like, in terms of like, I want to get out of the first round kind of matchups.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he'll take Melo every day, every possession, Andy, unless you disagree.
And he should.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's good. The Blazers don't, I think, on paper or in reality, have that natural matchup for LeBron, and obviously that's problematic because beyond the fact that he's LeBron, he's also the guy controlling everything the Lakers do. Like their offense is specifically built for LeBron running it. And we've seen, over the course of the year, the Lakers have often struggled when LeBron has been off the court, not there specifically to run it. With that in mind, though, Peter, do you think that, when you start thinking about ways to go about slowing the Lakers, how equipped do you think that the Blazers are to actually try to do something about Anthony Davis?
That's the key for me. That is Anthony. I mean, look, LeBron's going to LeBron. He's the greatest player of this generation. He's going to do his thing. We know that. You can't stop the guy. Anthony Davis is built to exploit Portland's weaknesses. Right. I mean, look, think back. Let's start defensively. We're going to talk both sides of the ball here. Let's start defensively. Now, obviously, he's not playing with a Drew Holiday in a playoff Rondo. But when the Pelicans swept the Blazers, a big key, it wasn't just Drew Holiday that locked Dame up. Now, Dame's playing at a higher level than that. But having Anthony Davis be the guy to switch on the pick and roll, he can just swallow guys up when they drive to the rim. Now, I expect Dame to be ready for that. I expect him to be more efficient than that series, but life is going to be difficult for him, especially if they decide to get a little funky, slot him at center. Again, that's the other key. Now let's talk the offensive side of the ball. Jusuf Nurkic is a great interior defender, but look, Davis has gone from a guy who can shoot the three-pointer to that's part of his arsenal. Jusuf Nurkic, heaven forbid, Hassan Whiteside, they don't like to come out past the free throw line. They will, but they're not really keen to do it. Davis, I mean, look, he's going to murder Portland from 18 feet out, especially at that three-point line.
If you go back to that series, you mentioned it, the when Davis was with New Orleans, essentially the same front line and, a similar team, not exactly, but a similar team, probably less versatile team defensively than they are now, the Blazers, I mean. Davis lit them up. I mean, you go back, the numbers that Davis had in that series, he went for 35, 22, 28, 47, shot 57% from the floor, 25% from three. And like you say, Peter, this is when he really couldn't shoot threes the way that he can now. So he's a better offensive player than he was then, and he roasted them. And that was primarily playing that small ball thing, which at the very least the Lakers are probably going to do in the fourth. You don't know what they'll do throughout a game, but you're going to see more of it now in the postseason than you did during the regular season. I don't think there's any question.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Davis to me is the key. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. LeBron's going to do his LeBron things, but look, LeBron, he's such a smart player. You might not see eye-popping numbers out of him. I think he's going to recognize that mismatch or that ability to exploit Portland's defense immediately. Huge doses of Anthony Davis. I'm ready for it.
So then is Portland, do you think, really going into this thing just saying the only way we can win is outscoring the Lakers and just cranking up what's been working for them? I mean, their offense has been really good.
These games, Andy, will go to 11.
Yeah, I mean, like their offense has been great the entire year, and that's before getting Nurkic back, who is, I think, a really underrated part of that offense. I mean, the screens that he can set, the passes that he can make. I mean, he's a really, really good passer for his position. There's now more shots for Melo. If Zach Collins can pick up his offense, like that's a factor. Do you, Peter, ultimately just see that's Portland's plan is just we have to just outscore the Lakers and focus solely on that?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, the Lakers have, two top, I don't know, 6, 7 players in the NBA. They're built,
two of the top 5 in MVP.
Hey. Our listenership, top 5, Peter. Thank you very much.
No.
They
top
have the best 2 players of all time playing right now. Yeah. Dame is somewhere 30, 40 now. They're going to have to.
What has Damian Lillard done in the playoffs? Come on. What's that guy accomplished?
Look at the trash heap he drugged to the Western Conference Finals.
I mean, he's only eliminated 2 teams on 1 shot. What have there been 6 of those in history? And he's got 2. Yeah. Call me when you get half of them as opposed to a third of them.
I'm glad that you talked about Nurkic. By the way, I'm getting a little off topic here, but Nurkic is key to that offense if they're going to look to outscore the Lakers. People forget how important he is to the Blazers. The debate is really started when he was in the 2 weeks maybe before he had that gruesome leg injury. Nurkic, according to a lot of people here, is actually our second best player. It's not CJ McCollum. I'm in that camp. I
think that's fair. I think that's
you can make the argument.
You can make the argument at the very least. I think it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to get deep into the weeds with numbers, but just net plus minus last season before he got hurt, he was second in the Western Conference behind Steph Curry. He's that much of a difference maker. So
he's more versatile than people realize, I think. Yeah. I mean, just because he's been out of sight for a while, and he's next to a guy like Damian Lillard, who rightly will suck up all the oxygen because he's amazing. you know, and he's so flashy and charismatic. But I mean, Nurkic really, really opens up a lot of different opportunities on offense, the offensive rebounding, you know, the second chances that he gives Portland.
And I think, Peter, too, there's an addition by addition because you're adding a really good player back into your rotation and a healthy version of him than it would have been when he was just coming back before the stoppage. But there's also addition by subtraction because when you have Jusuf Nurkic, it means you're playing Hassan Whiteside less. And I realize, you know, his counting, like he's a good fantasy basketball player. He's not a great actual basketball player. Not a winning player.
Great way to put it. And look, considering the situation with the cap space, Nurkic's long-term injury, Whiteside was I'll say he's a great fill-in. You don't want to count on the guy, but hey, you need a 7-footer to play some minutes until Nurkic is back. That's great. But look, it's amazing how impressive Damian Lillard was. Remember that tear he went on, what was that, February, January, where he just went nuclear this season? Considering Hassan Whiteside just sort of shows the idea of a screen. I've never seen the guy set a hard screen once. One time. Just give him one good screen. And you have Damian Lillard who thrives on the pick and roll, who plays a bigger percentage of his plays in the pick and roll than anyone else in the NBA probably. The fact that he was able to do that playing next to Hassan Whiteside was all the more impressive. Nurkic is stellar in the pick and roll, the pick and pop, facilitating out of the high post, looking for cutters. Whiteside does none of that, and it's great that he's a fine bench center. You'd love to have him come in and play 12 minutes, but can't count on the guy.
So if you had to pick a guy, and Terry Stotts has really tightened up the rotation, you know, and I don't expect it to necessarily expand a lot once the playoffs start Tuesday. If you had to pick a guy outside of the obvious, Damian Lillard, you know, something like that, who is capable of giving the Lakers problems based on the matchups, based on the skill set, who would you point to?
That's a good question. I mean, I would sort of lean towards Gary Trent. He might fall in the realm of obvious with his play in the bubble.
You only have like 7 guys in the rotation to choose from, so I can, you know, I think that's a fair answer, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're playing Mario Hezonja minutes, you're limited in options. I'd say Gary Trent Jr., just being able to, with Dame sucking up the oxygen, like you said, Trenton getting loose from the corner, from the wing. He's shown he can get hot. But, I mean, look, really, there aren't any surprises with this Blazers team. Dame's the guy. CJ's going to support. Melo's going to pick his spots. Nurkic is just going to gobble up boards. I mean, that's it.
Don't poo-poo Hezonja, man. He is the owner of, I think, the most offensive block in LeBron James's career when he got stuffed rim by Hezonja last year.
Do you know how many times that block got shared on socials here in Portland? We were stoked for that guy. And let me just take a minute to crap on Mario Hezonja. I've never seen a player. So when you're evaluating a basketball player, you know, you look at the tools, you look at this, you know, his court vision, his passing, his rebounding, his shooting form, all of these basic things. Mario Hezonja checks every single box except he is a terrible NBA player. I do not understand it.
You know what he's kind of like? And I mean, I think on balance, the guy I'm about to name has been better, but it's the same principle as Jeff Green. Like totally. Jeff Green as like
he's a theoretical
concept is amazing. And he's a dream. And Jeff Green will have like 9 games a year that are so amazing. That's what gets him his next deal. And I know, like, you know, he's not getting max deals or anything like that. He's getting, you know, paid, I think, commensurate to what he does. But I think you could still find a GM in the league that if you gave them truth serum and said, do you still believe in the potential of Jeff Green? You'll get at least one that says
yes. Jeff Green played with Magic. He's been in the league forever. I agree.
But I get it. Look, yes, I get it. There will occasionally be games where I watch Jeff Green. I'm like, damn, man, that guy. I want that guy. And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. No, you don't. Like, no, or at the very least, you'll go through 50 other guys before you get to him.
And Hezonja has like 3 of those a year.
Oh, yeah. When he's electric, and it's not even an electric game, it's an electric 6-play run in some random second quarter. And you just go, oh, here we go, baby. Here we go. It's Hezonja time. Here we go. Super Mario. And then he'll just turn the ball over twice, and he'll trip on a defender's
How many times a year during this season did you yell out, it's Hezonja time, baby?
No comment.
Okay, so I tracked down what might be. We were talking about Damian Lillard and just what he's done and Portland's need to outscore the Lakers and to have any chance in the series. This is what I would consider perhaps an unsettling stat for Laker fans. Damian Lillard in the bubble, 8 regular season games. For some reason, the play-in game, like it's hard to get those blended in with the regular season in terms of averages. But for the 8 games that were considered regular season, 37.6 points per game, nearly 50% from the field, 43.6% from 3, 10 free throws a game at almost 89% conversion, 9.6 assists per game. Damian Lillard's 3 games against the Lakers this year, 36 points per game, 50.8% from the field, 39% from 3, 11 free throw attempts a game, almost 88% conversion, 9 assists per game. They're basically the same stats.
Yeah.
And there are few teams that Lillard has, that Lillard has put up more ungodly numbers against in terms of multiple meetings. But most of them are teams like Dallas or Golden State that have really bad defenses. The Lakers have had a good defense, and Lillard has beaten them anyway. Like he's been really good against everyone, but he's been really good against the Lakers this year. And the Lakers don't have Avery Bradley, who, if nothing else,
it's another guy.
He's capable of disruption.
Dame lit up Bradley during the year.
Sure.
We'll look at some numbers and stuff like that this morning, like just trying to think about that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like it's an option. It's another body that you can put out there to change the look, to try something different. So I mean, the Lakers, I don't think there's even an idea that okay, we're going to go in there and stop Dame. I think can we limit McCollum? Can you keep Nurkic from going off? Because like if you say Damian Lillard has to beat the Lakers by himself over 7 games with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the Lakers are going to win. Scary. He'll give you a couple of scary moments. Might steal a game. Damian Lillard is.
You don't
not
want it
going
close
to,
in the fourth, man.
He's not going to beat the Lakers by himself. Is he? Like he's not that crazy.
He could beat him. I think he could beat. Okay, Peter. Do you think this is fair? He could beat the Lakers by himself for 1 game.
1 game, yes.
So, I think he will. And look, I'm not going crazy. Look, you give me $100 to put on the series, I'm taking the Lakers, no doubt about it. This isn't going to be a sweep. Damian Lillard not only he will beat LA 1 game by himself. Book it. He is that in the zone. He's that driven. He choked against the Clippers. He missed those 2 free throws and the 3. That set him off, man. I
think that was actually the worst thing that could have happened to the Lakers and the rest of the league.
And probably that was the best thing that could have happened to Portland.
Yeah.
Well, Andy and I always joke like that the Western Conference GMs, coaches, opposing players are so excited that people are finally putting him on all-star teams because every year Dame would get snubbed for an all-star spot.
Like a legit snub.
And then just spend the second half of the season torching people. Now he at least has that. But, he'll find something else. So here's my basic question, I think, is this. Like, are the Blazers scared? Because they're kind of a fashionable, Chuck picked them to go to the finals. And everybody's like, look out. Like, Damian, they went to Western Conference Finals. They should be in a normal season.
To Laker fans, Barkley's never right about anything.
That's true. They'd be a 3 or 4 or 5 seed in a normal season with
that is probably true.
They'd be in that mix between 3 through 6. It's hard to sort any of those teams out, but they're not a typical 8 seed. I think that's true.
No, they are not.
All of that's true, but given that, are the Blazers an actual scary team for the Lakers, or is it just that Dame is so scary that it seems like they're scary? Like, is Dame scary or is the team scary?
Well, I think the team is scary, but it's an extension of Dame being scary. You have to be aware of where Damian Lillard, it's the same deal with LeBron. You have to be aware of that guy at all times, like from 2 hours before the game till he goes to sleep at night. You have to be aware of him. And that's what gets McCollum those open looks. That's what gives Melo that chance to hit a clutch 3 in the corner. That's what, gets Nurkic going on the pick and roll, because Lillard's gravity is just so strong. So, I mean, yes, it's Damian Lillard, but all these other guys are primed to take advantage of what he brings to the game when he's taking on that LA defense.
It was funny. I was looking up the history between LeBron and Melo because that's obviously going to be one of the storylines in this. they've only played 5 games total against each other in the playoffs. It was one series.
Wow.
Heat.
The Knicks suck.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was Heat Knicks 2012, the opening round. The Heat won. That was en route to LeBron's first title with Miami. And like, it makes sense when you think about it that they have so little playoff history, given like how much time they had spent in opposite conferences. And then some of that coinciding time was when Melo's Knicks weren't good at all. But it still feels crazy that they have so little playoff, history against each other just because of how long they've been in the league and how connected they are. You know what I mean? Like it seems weird that they don't have more of that. Like LeBron and Wade are connected and they've got more history, even as teammates, but like they've got a history. You don't have that at all with LeBron and Melo. So if nothing else, I'm sure this is going to be really special for both of them.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be great. And Melo obviously has his limitations, but he's sort of been a revelation here. It was when Portland signed him, it was kind of the meme, like just yay, infinite jab steps and AP, they're desperate and all these things.
They really were desperate at the time.
They were, yeah. I mean, look, the Blazers are only in the position they're in right now because they've been devastated by injuries. I mean, it's been terrible, but Melo's been great. He's truly accepted his role, something I never thought I'd see. And I mean, it helps that Terry Stotts runs the kind of offense where he can thrive. It's okay to take a mid-range jumper. It's not a D'Antoni system. It's okay to just one-on-one, for 2 possessions in a row. Yeah, I mean, it's ugly sometimes, but Stotts gives his players the leash to sort of fail, or if they're feeling it, really just kind of take hold of the offense for a little bit. But Melo's been dialed in. Limited defender. He's trying. This is more than I've seen since, I don't know, he was in Denver. He's trying on defense. He's communicating. By all accounts, he's been a great teammate. Obviously, I've only been in the locker room a couple times just because of the pandemic this season. But I mean, great dude. The guys like him. And it's been great to see his career sort of bounce back so that maybe at least next year he can get that.
He comes back next year, don't you think?
I don't know if he's back in Portland. He's definitely back in the NBA. A little birdie told me, look, the only reason he came to Portland is because he was guaranteed a starting job. Like, you will start. Okay, I'll do this. That's worthy of the Carmelo Anthony experience. With Hood, I mean, Ariza's he has to opt in on that $12 million extension, right?
But isn't it partially guaranteed? I thought it was only a partially guaranteed deal. I could be wrong about that.
For Ariza?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Portland has the option to cut him
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. And of course, I couldn't tell you the date now because that date originally was, I think, July 1st.
Time means nothing anymore, Peter.
Exactly. But with Rodney Hood not guaranteed to come back, I mean, you'd have to imagine that they're gonna bring him in. Ariza's going to be back, and I just don't know if Melo's here. I'd love to have him. I don't know how the rotation would work, but if he wants to go somewhere else and do a jersey swap and get his standing every game next season, more power to him.
Sign a 1-year deal with the Lakers, they'll take him.
You know what? I mean, it wouldn't be shocking. If I'm Melo thinking about this, like, especially if let's say he has a good playoffs, there's a part of me that would be thinking about, it might not get better than this. Go out with everyone loving me. Because, I mean, there was this period where, as much as, I think some of the criticism of Melo had gotten overboard, but there was a part of it that had been earned in the sense that he clearly was having a difficult time accepting where he was at this stage of his career. And I think, right place mentally and also right fit in Portland, he found the perfect spot. He's back to being, I think, in some ways more appreciated than he had been. And I think, there's a little bit of a you don't know what you got till it's gone with Melo, and him having this type of season. Again, I don't know him, and I don't know, how he would go about evaluating these sorts of things. And obviously he can still play.
It seems like he wants to keep playing.
Sure.
I don't think he walks away.
It just, there's always, though, if I were him, I would at least be thinking a little bit about that. Just
I think
it took so much work to get himself back to this place where he truly is appreciated. He's been with a good team that needed him, that he's been critical towards getting, very improbably into the playoffs. And, by the way, Melo has played really well in the bubble. Like, he's been really good. If he can maintain this for what I think is only going to be one round of the playoffs, but he can keep acquitting himself really well, there is an opportunity to go out on a high note that may not be there in a lot of other situations.
Yeah, and that is a great point, and it's true. You mentioned the criticism and how it's valid, but it's kind of gotten so extreme. I mean, look, all indications are this guy's a great teammate. He's not a me first guy.
He's always been loved as a teammate. He's always been loved around the league.
Always.
And you look at those Knicks teams, like, who the hell was he supposed to pass the ball to? Come on. It makes sense. I think he's motivated to go out on his terms, though. I think he saw sort of the Wade retirement tour. He's going to want something like that. If he plays one more season, he's going to move into the top 10 in NBA scoring history. He just passed Paul Pierce and someone else. I don't remember.
Oh, that made Laker fans happy. That made Laker fans happy. I saw so much Lakers Twitter just excited about like a torch being passed, like a milestone. They had no idea it had been in the works.
But anytime a Celtic loses a spot in anything, we celebrate.
Celtic.
Yeah.
That feels Celtic.
People are still angry about the wheelchair thing. It was a decade ago.
Well, it was ridiculous. It
was completely ridiculous. I was at that game. It was totally absurd, but it was a while ago. It's funny. Like, it just depends. Like, if Vince Carter clearly evolved to a place where he enjoyed being around the guys, he enjoyed the role, if Carmelo genuinely likes it, and he's like, you know what, I like this better than I thought, I can do it, then I think he stays. I mean, because going out on your own terms, going out on a high note is, I think, only one of those deals, Andy, if you really don't love what next year's option would be and you can't accept it. But I'd go back to Portland. I wouldn't fish around.
I think if that was an option,
or the Lakers. I mean, and then you go play with LeBron. It's an easy structure to fit into, but I wouldn't look too hard. Pick a good team, a playoff caliber team where you can play some significant minutes. They'll protect you and all that. That's what I would do. Peter, you said earlier that if you had $100, you would put it on the Lakers.
Yes.
All three of us work in media, so we know the flaw in that statement is none of us have $100.
Well, these days.
So what do you think? Is one of the fascinating things I think about this series actually is the neutral court thing, because Staples Center is a totally underrated home court, but Portland is one of the few places, I keep calling it the Rose Garden.
Great place,
but it's one of the few places where Lakers fans don't get in the building. Like, they're kind of shut out. Well, not as much. Have you ever gone to a road game in like Atlanta? It's a home game. Portland fans in the playoffs will out yell the Lakers fans.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
It's allowed. Man, there's a
lot of number 8s and number 24s.
Sure, but it's a more hostile. It's a more hostile crowd than you would typically get for the Lakers anywhere on the road. Which is why they lost relative. Like 7.
It's all relative.
It's why they lost like 743 consecutive games up there. But does it? So how does it? So you would have had those 3 games where there might have been a real home court advantage for Portland, and obviously playing at home in front of an energized, we haven't been there in 7 years or whatever it is, Lakers crowd would have been good for the Lakers. Does any of that make a difference for this, like in terms of predicting what the amount of games or anything like that?
I really don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's just, even playing field for everyone. But again, I mean, the Lakers would have had the one extra home game. I don't think that matters to Lillard. I mean, it really doesn't. You saw what he's done in Staples Center this year or over his career. I don't think it really matters.
All right. Well, final question for you, Peter.
Prediction.
Yep.
I've got to go Lakers in 6. Look, Lillard's going to win one, and the actual team is going to win one. But the Lakers are just too good. They have LeBron. They have especially Anthony Davis. They're gonna escape. They're gonna work harder than they wanted to on their quest to the Western Conference Finals.
Escape? How dare you, sir? Escape.
They'll escape. Look,
this is a hard first round matchup.
It is.
I will say that
he's been a lot of time writing about this is the scariest possible.
The one good thing about
Lakers.
The one good thing about the whole neutral court thing is it gets you out of having to say, wait a minute, you think the Lakers are going to eliminate Portland on their home floor? It's like
Right.
6 is like a measurement of how good you think the teams are relative to each other. So this is easier. Lakers in 6. I think that is a fair and noble and impartial assessment from a Portland guy.
I will go Lakers in 6 as well. That's actually what I think is going to happen. I could see it being Lakers in 5 if Portland is just gassed from this. Like if
but it won't be
they,
7. I'm much more of a 5, leaning 5 than leaning 7.
I would say Lakers in 6. That's my prediction.
He's a contributing writer to Blazers Edge, a just fantastic Portland blog everybody should be reading during the playoffs.
It's good stuff.
However many games it goes, 7:50 the game in Portland. Peter Sampson, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you, fellas. Enjoy the series.
It's me
you as well, man.
All right, thanks again to Peter Sampson of Blazers Edge and 750 the game in Portland. Reminder as well, delicioupizza.com. Tell them Cam Brothers as a password, whether you're going in personally to either of the 2 locations, West Adams or Hollywood. If you're doing it online, calling it in, Cam Brothers gets you 20% off. Really, really delicious pies, plus supporting local businesses, which is important right now, and you're supporting a guy who's a huge Laker fan.
Yes, he is.
That's what they do.
Mike
over there.
Ross,
Delicious.
big Laker fan.
So, we're picking the podcast back up. And Andy, you have news?
Yes. For people watching on YouTube or any of the visual feeds that we do the podcast from, and you should be subscribing to all of them, by the way. Just want to explain to people really quickly why all of a sudden after the interview with Peter, you will now be seeing me in a different shirt.
Is it because you felt so dirty talking to a Portland guy that you had to change shirts?
I had to get that stain off me after a 3-hour shower.
Stank.
No, there was some time that passed in between us talking with Peter, and then we wanted to wait to hear comments from Frank Vogel and some other players.
They did media like 5 hours later.
Right, exactly. And in between that time, I got something on my shirt and then changed shirts. And then I just realized now that all of a sudden,
it's a continuity error.
Well, it's a continuity error. I guess it reminds me a little bit of, it's not a good movie, but there is one hilarious scene in this movie. It's called Buffalo 66 with Vincent Gallo. And
I saw it, but I think I wiped it from my memory.
Not a good movie. It's not a good movie, but there is one really funny scene. The premise of it is Vincent Gallo plays this guy who just gets released from prison, and his parents have no idea that he's been in prison, and he's using Christina Ricci as a fake girlfriend to reintegrate himself into his parents' life without them knowing what had been going on. So the two of them go to like a mall, and they get inside one of those photo booths so they can take pictures
of like their different lives and stuff, right?
But they're all in the same clothes, which she points out to Vincent Gallo, to which he says it doesn't matter. He just keeps switching the backgrounds, and he says, "We're spanning time. We're spanning time. Spanning time."
Yes, yeah, so
it's not a good movie, but that scene is hilarious.
All right, so that explains the shirt.
Yes.
What was it that you spilled on yourself?
I don't know.
Filth, just filth in general.
Just stuff I'm eating, drinking, whatever. I just realized it was all getting on the shirt, so I changed.
Anyway,
it's just a sloppy Sunday, you know.
As an old person,
it's hot, man. It's really hot right now.
As an old person, Andy has lost the ability to eat without food. I may have been dribbling down his front.
It's difficult. The one day I don't wear my huge bib.
Your big lobster bib?
Yeah, one day I don't wear the bib. It comes back to bite me.
Andy.
Also, it may have been subconsciously too. It's so damn hot.
It's really hot. Like I
may have wanted just liquid all over me.
That's
just
true.
Drenched all over me, doing my flash.
I don't know
dance.
what you were doing eating soup today anyway. But look, Andy, to be fair, most veterans of the Korean War can't really eat without assistance either. I think you're doing great.
Expected more respect from you, Brian, as somebody who served.
No, thank you for your service. I'm just saying.
You're welcome.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so this.
You want to talk about Mikan?
Let's. This playoffs is important. Like, one of the questions I did ask Vogel during media today was just on Sunday as we record was just about this idea of a championship window, and the Golden State, it's coming back, and they talk about like Denver is an up and coming team, or New Orleans, Phoenix, whoever, Memphis. These are all teams that are up and coming, may get there, may not, but they have that window that people talk about. The Lakers don't really have that. Like, they could be good, I think, for the next couple of years for sure, and have an opportunity, depending on who succeeds LeBron, to play with presumably Anthony Davis to keep it going. But it's going to be hard for the Lakers to get a lot better over the next few years. Not saying it can't happen. They do have the ability to sign people free agent wise after next season. They've managed their cap well, but they don't have a lot of access to young players. They're going to be generally capped out going forward. It's going to be hard for them to add particularly young talent. And it puts, I think, a great onus on taking advantage of the opportunity that they have to win this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I say this a lot, but the best championship opportunity that any team has is the one that's realistically in front of them. And that's what the Lakers have right now. I mean, they are truly in win now mode in terms of LeBron's window, but also just who's on their team. I mean, they only have 3 young guys. I mean, like really young guys in Kuzma and Caruso. And if you want to count THT, or I guess depending on how, KCP is sort of sneaky young. He's been around a while.
Those are all, other than, and Davis isn't old, but Davis isn't, 20.
Right. But I'm talking guys like, KCP is probably too old for this discussion.
25 and under.
Right.
Basically.
I mean, you're looking at Caruso, Kuzma, and depending on how good you think he could be, THT, or I guess depending on how much you want to tamper Kostas. But, they don't have a lot of young guys on this team. So, in certain ways, this is, like always, a conversation about Kyle Kuzma and how good you ultimately think Kuz is going to be. And, really, what is his long-term fit with this team? Like, can Kuzma ultimately transition into a true wing player? Because, there is some redundancy with him, if nothing else, size-wise, with LeBron and AD. Because even though offensively LeBron can be whatever you want him to be, defensively there are more restrictions. Like, it's a little bit more walled in.
You need Kuz to be able to guard wings.
Right. And then,
in that way.
And Kuzma has acknowledged there's redundancy in some ways between him and AD, and also
he said it.
LeBron.
I play behind the 2 best players in the league at my position, is what he said after the game the other day.
Is there a way that you can have Kuzma be a starter along those 2 guys and, have Kuzma ascending, alongside them?
Yeah.
And, I don't think Kuzma is going to get an extension this off season, if I had to guess.
No, just for cap reasons.
Exactly. Just to keep everything clear.
Clean.
But they are going to have to make a decision about, okay, what is his fit? Do we look to flip him? What could we get if they flip him? And and not to get into the weeds of the future with Kuzma, but it's more to that point, Brian, like you said, of window of opportunity.
Right. And with Kuz, it's also too, it's like, is he going to get, you talk about young players ascending. He would have to for Kuz to make a big jump, like a really legitimately big jump, he would have to be a little different than most. He would qualify almost as being kind of a late bloomer. He's 25 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's give or take 25.
He's around there. And in the modern NBA, generally speaking, guys are kind of at that trajectory.
He's actually 26.
He's 26. So I don't know how, Paul George got kind of better as he went along.
I'm seeing both.
It's whatever. He's in that. He's close enough. Kawhi Leonard, some of that's all related to opportunity. It's related to roles. Certain guys are more.
He's 25. Remember, Kuzma correct myself. He's 25 because it was a big deal. He just turned 25.
So, even he doesn't totally qualify as that. He's not Michael Porter Jr. or, Luka or one of these guys, just turned 20, just turned 21, just turned 22. He's a little older than that. And then you look around the rest of the league, and Golden State's going to be back next year, presumably with those guys healthy. And Brooklyn is going to be better in the other conference. And I don't know about Houston, but Denver, with especially if Porter Jr. can stay healthy, and every time somebody gets hurt on that team, what we do find is like, damn, they got like the 11th player on Denver is actually really good. And so in terms of filling out a good rotation around Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray or whatever that turns out to be, like that's a team that you could say has a window to get better because those players tend to be a little bit younger. And, we talked about Memphis and we've talked about New Orleans and Phoenix. What they did had got people's attention. And so it's not going to get easier after this season. The Clippers will have another year of, kind of integrating what they are. I doubt LeBron, and he didn't speak to the media on Sunday. And I hope to be able to ask him this question because it's at least possible he'd give a thoughtful answer to it. Like, this is they're running out of options for him. He's running out of years. So I do wonder if, as much as, and Frank Vogel talked about it today, they do the whatever game's in front of us, you can't think big picture like that. You can't do those things. And I get it. He's right, because it's not helpful. I do wonder if LeBron understands or puts more of an immediacy on this season and understands like this could be it more than he might have, 6 or 7 years ago. I can't imagine he doesn't.
No, I mean, I would imagine that he does. And based on everything we've seen this year from LeBron in terms of the urgency in the way that he's played, the urgency in the way that he's led this team, I think he absolutely recognizes what's in front of him. I mean, there's been an element of getting everybody on the same page and making sure that you keep Anthony Davis in a mental space where he wants to commit to this team long term, because LeBron was as big a reason as any that AD is actually on this team. I mean, not even just from AD's perspective, but from the Lakers being willing to move heaven and earth and literally trade the entire team but Kuzma to bring him in.
Right.
But
And basically all of their future assets.
Right. I mean, they're going to have a late first round pick this year. I mean, just informationally for people who aren't aware.
29th, correct?
Yeah, 29th, because they finished behind the Bucks. So
right.
They'll have the 29th pick. And the plus side of that is the Lakers have been really good at finding good talent late in the first round, early in the second. They have a track record of it. They're very, very good at it. Like, even if you don't think Kuzma, for example, met the hype early on, if you remove that hype and just look at Kyle Kuzma's play as the 27th pick, that's a home run. Like, no matter where things go from there.
Oh, completely.
He's absolutely.
Absolutely.
Josh Hart is
same
a
thing.
Great pick at 30.
Absolutely.
I mean, they are, I know, internally high on Talen Horton-Tucker, second round pick. They're very good at this.
After about the 15th pick in any draft, if you find a guy who can be a part of your rotation or a rotation level player in the NBA, you have done really well. That's hard to do. Like, people completely underestimate how valuable an average player is in the league. It means half the league is worse than that guy. And if you have two superstars and a bunch of average players, then you can win a lot of games. And the Lakers, to some degree, are testing that theory this year. You can argue how much above or below average a lot of their guys are, and it's certain skill sets, it varies, but average gets you a long way in this league. And so you're right. What the Lakers have done has been great.
But still, even acknowledging that, they only are going to have that one first round asset, save an unforeseen trade. And when I mentioned Kuzma, it's because a lot of what they potentially could do improving hinges on Kuzma either taking that step and him being a part of the team, or what is his trade value. And even then it gets complicated because he makes so little money now trying to get an impact player. Do you package him, THT, Danny Green? It starts getting really complicated for the Lakers to try to bring in people. To the original
way
point,
to do it. Yeah.
To the original point, it's really important that they cash in on this opportunity to championship this year, because I agree with you, the window doesn't shut, and certainly Anthony Davis isn't going to fall off, and LeBron is not going to fall off, but they all get older and everything grows more
bigger. It probably doesn't get bigger.
Grows a little bit more uncertain.
I think too, it's just, so when you look at all of this stuff that we're going to see in this postseason, and we talked about it with, in the preview, like every game is a neutral site game. All of these little intangibles that are kind of thrown out the window and you can't figure out exactly what they mean and how they translate. This is another one of those things, like the sense of urgency from LeBron this year over other years. Is it tangible? Do other players pick up on that energy? Is it exhausting to try to engage in that at the sort of LeBron's level, or do you have to? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions, and it's one of those things that I'm not sure any of them are going to articulate specifically enough that we'll ever get them, at least until after the year is over. One thing that we do know, Andy, before the year is over, is that Jimmy Butler is going to have a little bit of extra pocket money. He has, in what I think you tweeted out today is the most Jimmy Butler thing ever. He's created a coffee bar,
yes,
in his hotel room, inside the bubble. It's an in-bubble coffee bar, and it is outrageously expensive. Every cup of coffee, no matter what he's making you, small, medium, or large, costs $20. No IOUs, cash only. Jimmy Butler is not here for your Apple Pay. He's not here for your can you spot me and I'll get you later. He is not here for any of that.
Jimmy Butler seems among the least likely players in the NBA that you could ever get to and accept an IOU. I mean, between just the way, Jimmy Butler grew up and all the uncertainty and the chaos that he went through, he was literally homeless. So I can't imagine that does not affect anybody's mentality, understandably, when it comes to money. But also, Jimmy Butler is so alpha male. I mean, this is the most alpha male coffee shop I've ever seen. And it's so perfectly him.
It's a tremendous understanding, too, of the market that he's in, because he's in a place where the poorest guy makes, close to $1 million a year. Most of these guys make, multiple millions a year. None of them particularly want to walk to, I'm sure there's a place where you can get, a latte pour over, you can get a cappuccino, an Americano. I'm sure you can get those things inside the bubble, but you might have to go somewhere. You might have to walk down to the players' lounge, or make it yourself, or have it delivered.
Or what they have in there isn't good.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe Jimmy Butler makes a spectacular cup of coffee.
According to his agent, Bernard Lee, he tweeted out that they're building tunnels to get the beans into the bubble like El Chapo.
Right.
Chapo, by the way.
All I'm saying is, my basic point is that he's a guy who understands that people in this bubble are willing to pay $20, small, medium, large, for a cup of coffee.
Well, but he told Rachel Nichols on The Jump that the coffee basically in the bubble sucks. And look, I've stayed in good hotels before where I didn't think they had great coffee. I mean, there are some places that happens. I mean, you'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised that the coffee is not great. And clearly, Jimmy Butler recognized it's not just me thinking this. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks this. I guess, it's a black mark on Disney World, but they
are on the bubble generally.
Yeah, they apparently don't have good coffee in Disney World.
I really respect the pricing. I have it's not just the starting of the coffee bar. It is recognizing who you're Could you run with this business model outside the bubble? No, $20, too much for a cup of coffee. It's too easy to get a $5 cup of coffee that's pretty good, or a $6. But inside the bubble, nobody's allowed in, can't leave. Kudos to Jimmy Butler.
Oh, I agree. It's fantastic. Nice work.
Finally,
Jimmy Butler.
It's so Jimmy. I don't know if I would want to be his teammate. It sounds like it's both rewarding and really hard at the same time. But I love Jimmy Butler. I love him. I love everything. I love the concept of Jimmy Butler. I love how comfortable and confident he is in being Jimmy Butler. I love all of this.
Let me just say really quick too that the commercial that he has for the NBA restarting, where he's packing all his clothes, singing "You Make My Dreams Come True" by Hall & Oates.
Awesome.
It is so delightful.
Awesome.
And it's so funny to see Jimmy Butler, one of the most intense guys in the whole league, singing that song.
Hall & Oates. He's rocking out to Hall & Oates.
Yes.
And packing up.
He's a big country music guy, by the way.
I believe that. Finally,
is my understanding.
Before we go, last bit of news, and this is not basketball related. Congratulations to Sean Penn, who has married his once girlfriend, now then presumably fiance, and now wife. Is it Layla or Lila?
I don't know. I think it's Lila. That's usually the way I've seen Lila spelled.
Lila George.
Sure. Yes.
who's very pretty, and that's nice. Good for him. She is an actress. They did apparently a COVID sensitive wedding with social distancing and all that appropriate stuff.
Actually, Sean Penn's been involved with a lot of COVID relief. You know what I just learned? I didn't know this. Sean Penn was involved with getting all of that COVID testing at Dodger Stadium. If I remember correctly, I think he actually played a role in coordinating. I mean, his
nonprofit has been very deeply involved.
Yeah, well, Sean Penn also has a history. I mean, he can be a really mercurial fella, to say the very least.
He's a little intense.
Yes, but he also has a really well-established and frankly very admirable track record when it comes to charitable work and in particular relief work. Like he did a lot during Katrina. Like Sean Penn is not afraid to roll his sleeves.
Like him, dislike him, like the causes that he supports, dislike the causes that he supports, or his politics or whatever it is. You have to respect the fact that he's out there putting a lot of money and time and genuine effort into the things in which he believes. What makes this interesting in part is not just the age difference. That's not that unusual. He's 59, I believe, and she is 28.
He is turning 60 the day people will hear this podcast, so happy birthday in advance.
Very good. And she, I believe, is either 28 or 29, so that's not crazy in Hollywood. It's unusual in other places. Yeah, it is. It's almost like a rom-com, basically.
People are wondering in Hollywood,
casting in a rom-com.
Yeah, people in Hollywood are wondering, when did Sean Penn become so open-minded when it comes to age-appropriate relationships?
It's notable because she is the daughter, Layla George, of Greta Scacchi and Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes. When I read this article, it came out a couple weeks ago that they had gotten married very incognito, and my immediate thought upon seeing that, because I didn't even realize, like I had heard of Lila George. I'd heard of her before. I'm vaguely aware of her, but I did not realize that she was Vincent D'Onofrio's daughter. And Greta Scacchi's daughter, though if you look at her, she looks exactly like Greta Scacchi.
Which is a good thing.
Yes. But it dawned on me upon reading this. This makes Vincent D'Onofrio Sean Penn's father-in-law.
And Greta Scacchi his mother-in-law.
He is a year and
correct.
Yes, he is a year and change older than his son-in-law, Sean Penn.
Well, how about this? He is only, it looks, if I'm doing the math right, January, February, March. He's about 5 months younger than his mother-in-law.
That is really, really hilarious to me. Like the idea of having a son-in-law, or that is. But
you're the same. You went through this, Andy. You went through this.
Yes.
What was that process like for you?
Well, I mean, it was nice. It was nice being, a total peer with my stepfather-in-law.
Right.
The fact that we both remember, like, when Elvis first performed live, things.
So it was easier to ask for your wife's hand in marriage because you had that bond that you could break through.
Yes,
good.
We both swapped AARP stories. What it's like wearing those diapers. We bonded really nicely. It's a good way to break the ice because it's always awkward. I mean,
it is
under
completely
any type of circumstances when you're taking, as the saying goes, taking somebody's daughter, and it's nice that my stepfather-in-law could look me in the eye and respect me and really feel confidence in me as a man because we're the same age. we're both in our 70s.
Can I just say how much I respect the way you yes-anded your way through that?
I don't know, and I don't know, unless you're doing something really stupid, in which I would call it out as stupid.
No,
but I picked my spots.
No, that was good, and I respect it, and I think the audience appreciates it.
Thank you.
So congratulations. I really do wish they were like 58 and 59, so that Sean Penn could be slightly older. But
I think this is weird enough. Like, I got to be honest. I think this
Hollywood.
Is
Holly weird, Andy.
But just the idea that you've got these two very intense methody actors who are, I mean, this is going to be some really interesting Thanksgiving dinners. I was trying to remember.
Do you think that were they friends before? Because that to me is the strangest question. It's like, if he and Vincent D'Onofrio were really close friends, that I mean, if I'm D'Onofrio, I mean, I guess, you're 60 years old, your daughter's almost 30. You want her to be like, if you know Sean Penn on like a really deep level, good guy, you can get past maybe the idea that Sean Penn is stooping your daughter now, but like, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Is it more awkward than knowing somebody else is doing it? I don't know.
The article did not make clear whether or not the parents were at this socially distant wedding or whether or not they've approved anything like that. The LA Times article was not clear on this. I was trying to look through the IMDb for any times that they've worked together, and nothing jumped out at me. Like Sean Penn and Vincent D'Onofrio, it's one of two ways. They seem either so alike that they are going to bond over just the commonalities of intensity, or they are way too intense to ever be in the same room with each other. Like it's one or the other.
The third one is they are too intense for anyone else to be in the room with them. Like if they're good friends, they do everything alone. They go on road trips alone. They go out to dinner alone, because third wheel in any kind of environment with Vincent D'Onofrio and Sean Penn is too much.
There's nothing, though, in terms of looking over the IMDb. I don't see any time that they've worked together. They feel like guys that would have, and maybe they've done plays together or something like that. But nothing at the IMDb. I'm usually pretty good with this stuff. Nothing is jumping out at me as, oh, yeah, they were together in that. So I don't know.
Congratulations to those crazy kids. I'm happy for all of them. All right. Well, anything else?
No, I'm still just sort of mind blown by this.
Yeah,
I feel like this should have been a bigger story.
I think 2020 is very crowded. It's hard. Like Andy, Murder Hornets barely made a blip. We had like 2 days of Murder Hornets, and they're Murder Hornets, for God's sakes. And those barely made a blip. You got to. If you can crack the news cycle at all in 2020, you're doing good work.
Yeah, I guess just the fact that the LA Times wrote this up at all is a credit to Sean Penn, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Lila George.
Yeah, so congratulations to them. Game 1 is Tuesday. We'll be back at some point during the week. I mean, maybe we'll do after Thursday night's game or something like that. We'll figure it out. Thanks again.
Also, we're going to be on the Locked On Lakers podcast with Anthony Irwin during the course of this week. So be on the lookout for that as well.
All right, and thanks again to Delicious Pizza. 20% off when you tell them Cam Brothers sent you, either online, deliciouspizza.com, or when you walk into the shops, West Adams, or in Hollywood on Sunset. Thanks again to Delicious Vinyl, too, for support with the music for this podcast, which we really appreciate. We'll see everybody next time.